I'd like to introduce you all to Daniel Ptasznik. Daniel was in this course, actually. He graduated in 2018 from the HBA program. Spent a couple years in finance. Went back to do his master's, actually, at USC Marshall School of Business. Did his MBA, but...
Not MBA.
No, but MBA. MBA stands for Masters of Business Analytics. So he did business analytics.
MSBA, yeah.
MSBA, yeah. And then he did an internship in Oklahoma City Thunder doing player evaluation stuff. And now has started his own company, Value Beaver. And so today is really going to be a segue from what we've been talking about to the last section of the course, which is how do we think about gambling? And I know a lot of people think about gambling just in terms of what we'll be talking about here, but to me, gambling is how do you identify profitable opportunities? It's a little bit, at least to me, it's a little bit more widespread than just literal sports gambling. To me, it's about how do you identify profitable opportunities and how do you take advantage of those? So let's give a big round of applause to Daniel.
Thank you. Appreciate the introduction. It's been a long time, so I guess kind of spoiler from before. I'm Daniel. Nice to meet you all. I graduated from Ivey in 2018, as Kyle mentioned. I did get my start in the finance world, as you can see by all these lovely companies up here. It took me quite a while to figure out what I was actually passionate about. So I eventually decided to make the move more towards the data science world, which is why I decided to enroll in the Master of Science in Business Analytics at USC. While I was there, I was fortunate enough to get a really awesome opportunity to work for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I was in their analytics department, as Kyle mentioned, doing I guess my job was evaluating the player evaluation system that they had. And if you have questions after, I'm happy to try to answer whatever I can, although I can't answer everything. And then from there, I decided to move back to Canada, as careers in pro sports generally they don't pay too well, and they're far and few between, and you also have to leave your family. So I wanted to move home, and once I got back, I started taking the sports betting thing a little bit more seriously. And I actually all started with just this Twitter page that I made where I was sending out promotions and boosts and odds boosts that sportsbooks were offering. And figuring out which ones were profitable and sending them out, and that kind of got a little bit of traction, which started this whole thing towards the company that I am now working on full-time, which is called Value Beaver. And we basically are developing a whole set of tools that help people make money sports betting. So today, I wanted to, yes, that is important. Before we get into it, I don't want to encourage anybody to go gamble, go bet. The purpose of this is purely theoretical, and this alone will not give you all the skills you need to make money yourself gambling. I want to be very clear about that. It's a dangerous world, and addiction and bad bankroll management are very real. So please be careful. But that being said, what do you all think? Are the Raptors a good bet tonight versus the Sacramento Kings? Yes.
Sorry, I'm not name tag today. I don't really follow basketball too closely, but I know that the Raptors are not very good and the Kings are pretty solid. So it would probably depend on what the odds of each team are, considering the Raptors should be underdogs.
Great answer. All you needed to say was, depends on the odds. Nothing else matters. Good team, bad team, hot, cold. None of it matters. All that it depends on is the odds that you're being offered by a sportsbook or your friend or whoever you're betting with. So it's kind of a trick question, and that was a good answer. And so the follow-up to that is, if you could get $10,000 if the Raptors win tonight, but you'd lose $100, would that be a good bet? Would you probably take that bet? Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of nods. I think we all agree, right? It's pretty good. Now let's say, I sure would. Now what if you could only get $1 if the Raptors win? But yeah, okay. No. A lot of head shakes. I wouldn't take it either. It's a pretty bad bet. Now where it gets yes. And these, offers, these deals that I was talking about can be expressed with one single number. And for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to be using what's called the American odds format. It's popular in this side of the world. I think in this class, if I remember correctly, you do like decimal and
We do a couple different.
ones. So whatever. But for the purpose of this, I'm going to be using the American format just because it's popular here. And so what that means is if you're getting plus money, it's called plus money on a bet. It means for every $100 that you put down on a bet, you would win the amount that it says on the plus. So let's say plus 200. Every 100 you bet, you would get 200 profit if you win. Minus money is the opposite of that. So for every whatever amount that you bet, you would win 100. So minus 200 means you would have to bet $200 in order to get $100. And that's kind of the language that you'll see across the different sports books. So we know that we bet on the Raptors, as we said, at plus 10,000 odds, meaning $100 to win $10,000. And we know that we're definitely staying away from there at minus 10,000, which is 100 to win $1. But now let's look at a real book's odds. So this is from yesterday. It's moved a lot since then, but this was the odds yesterday that BetMGM was offering. So at plus 333, would anybody take that bet? Let's ask again. Any answers? Yeah, go for it.
I personally think so. I mean, if I put, let's say, sticking to the $100, you still get 333% return if you win. Obviously, you would lose. I think it's just a matter of like how much risk are you willing to take.
Fair enough. Anybody else? Any other? Okay, because yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't claim to know anything about basketball. I work in basketball, but I mean, you know, what does 333 really mean, right? Like it could be anything, right? So why don't we try to translate this number into something we can understand a little better? And so the odds that we're being given can actually be converted into what's called an implied probability. And so, for example, let's say two of us are flipping a coin over and over and over, and you're getting plus 100 odds, right? So you get $100 if it's heads, you lose $100 if it's tails. How often does this coin need to land on heads in order for you to break even on and on and on? And it's not a trick question. Yeah, go for it, Ellen.
Like 2, depending on like if you lose.
What percentage of the time? Just like, would you have to?
50%.
Exactly. Very simple. 50% of the time, totally right. Assuming you're getting a fair deal, plus 100 odds implies that you get a 50% chance of getting heads, right? So let's try another one that's not 50-50. With dice, right? So let's say we have one dice, and for every time you roll the numbers 1 to 5, you would lose $100. How much now do you need to win when you roll 6 to break even? Sorry, I saw a key on his hand go up quick.
And sorry, if you win, you get $600 or?
So how much would you need to profit, I should say, in order to break even when you roll a 6? So if you do it again and again.
So I guess in the case, my guess would be like $500.
That's exactly right? So you lose 100 when it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're down 500, then you get a 6, and then you break even, right? So the fair odds on that would be $500, aka plus 500 odds, because you profit $500 when you hit the 6. So assuming it's a fair deal, plus 500 odds would imply 1 in 6 chance of rolling a 6, which is totally correct. So now, so this relationship works with, this is just it's actually pretty blurry, but you can see like with every single possible combination, there's a couple formulas that you don't need to know, but a couple formulas that can convert odds into implied probability, and I'm pretty sure this comes up in a later lesson, so I'll explain. But just so you know, this works with anything. So now back to the Raptors. What is the implied probability of a win? When we use our formula that we just showed you on the previous slide, you can see that the odds of plus 333 imply that BetMGM is telling you that there's a 23.1% chance of the Raptors winning. So I will ask you guys again. Now that that you know that you have to be better than 23% chance for the Raptors to win in order to make money, who's taking the bet? Still not seeing a lot of hands. And that's totally correct, because who knows, right? I mean, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, so do they have a better than 23% chance? Your guess is totally as good as mine. I have no idea. And so there's a few ways that we can answer this question. And yeah, so the first way, which is by far the most common way, and unfortunately it's not the best way, but it's called the YOLO method. You know, it's very easy to make a guess of, you know, I think the Raptors are going to be bad without Pascal Siakam. They've lost 8 of their last 10 games, right? You see a lot of this among your friends probably, and, you know, when you're building parlays, whatever. I wouldn't recommend it, but that is one way to answer the question. No offense, I doubt that most people are going to be correct and make money doing that. So let's move on to another method. The second way to answer that question is called the bottom-up method. It's kind of the progression from the YOLO method, where you use data and very, very good domain knowledge to get an accurate estimate of the probability of an event. If you are good at this, this is the highest upside way to make money and the most sustainable. And if you're doing it, please give me a call, because it's really, really difficult, but you could make a lot of money. I don't recommend trying it because it's extremely hard. But there are a very select few people who are good at doing this. The third method, and what I have experience in, and a lot of the people in the community I'm in have experience in, is called the top-down method. And the premise of this method is sort of based on, you know, the efficient market hypothesis, and uses other sports books as a source of truth to get a guess as to what they think the chance of something happening is, that we can then use to bet into other books who maybe aren't as smart. So this method is simpler than the bottom-up method. Unfortunately, it's a little less sustainable, and you need to be a lot quicker because the line, you know, everyone can see these books and the lines move very quickly. So you have to be, you know, very fast when you're placing bets using this method. So an example is, let's just say a smart book. There's one called Pinnacle. I'm going to be using that one as the example for this chat. And so Pinnacle, let's say they think that the Leafs have a 70% chance to win tomorrow, but BetMGM, who we saw earlier, they think the Leafs only have a 60% chance. We can then use that to go on MGM and say, oh, well, there's, you know, the real chance is 70%. You're paying me as if it's 60%. I'm going to make money. Thank you very much. So, what does a sharp book think about the Raptors? And using our formulas from earlier, we can see that the Pinnacle, this is a screenshot from Pinnacle Sportsbook. They're saying that the Raptors have plus 360, and on the other side, on the Kings, it's minus 460. So using the formulas from before, you can see that the Raptors have a approximately 22% chance to win, the Kings 82% chance. And you may have noticed that adds up to 104, which is, you know, there's only 2 outcomes of the game, so it's got to add up to 100% probability for anything to happen, right? It's kind of weird. And this all comes back to, how do sportsbooks make money? And basically what sportsbooks do to make money, and the reason that most people lose money, is because they do what's called over-rounding the true probabilities of the outcomes of an event. So let's say they really think that you know, the Raptors are plus 400 to win a game. In reality, what they'll do is they'll lower the amount that they pay you in order to make what's called a vig, or a spread, between the two teams, and that's how they profit. So when we saw plus 360 on the Raptors earlier, that's actually lower than what Pinnacle really thinks are the odds. And this, again, is probably a good reason why you shouldn't be betting without a lot of training and practice. So, how do we actually find out what Pinnacle thinks is the true odds? We can do what's called Devigging, which is obviously removing the vig or the commission that the sportsbook is charging in order to figure out the true probability. And I'm not going to get too much into this, but there are a few methods on how to do it. I just wanted you guys to know that it's not one specific formula that can do this properly. There's a simpler one called multiplicative. It works best when there's not a long shot in the matchup, but then there's this thing in sports betting called the favorite long shot bias, which is that people really, really like to bet on underdogs and not as much on the favorites. And so a lot of the time the underdogs will actually get moved down more than the favorites. So these other methods will account for that. And so without going into the formulas, using this fancy bot from my Discord server, we can do all the math without having to worry about it. And you can see that once we take away the vig, the commission, Pinnacle thinks that the Raptors actually have a 19.7% chance, which is equal to plus 407. The Kings have an 80.3% chance, which is minus 407. And so now, are the Raptors a good bet on BetMGM? And so BetMGM offered to pay us plus 333 for the Raptors win, meaning that they need a better than 23% chance for us to break even. And Pinnacle told us that the Raptors have a 20% chance to win. So now, can we answer the question, are the Raptors a good bet on MGM? Yes, Travis.
No.
No, that is totally correct. So assuming that Pinnacle is smart, and I can promise you Pinnacle is very smart, according to these numbers, I wouldn't touch the Raptors at plus 333. Now here's another interesting question. Oh, yes, hard pass. What about the Kings side? And so there is a common misconception in sports betting world that if one side is not a good bet, then the other side's got to be a good bet, right? Because if the odds are too shaded to one side, you're going to just take the other side, and people lose a lot of money betting on the other side because they think that one side is all the fade the public. A lot of the people in the community are betting on one team, so I'm going to bet on the other team. That is not how it works because of the Overround I mentioned before. And we can see that with MGM offering minus 450, sorry, yeah, you can ignore these, by the way. They're offering minus 450 on the Kings winning the game, but Pinnacle told us that the fair value of this is actually minus 407, so that also is not a very good bet. Yes?
I totally agree. I mean, obviously you would win more on average than you would lose, but it would take longer to break even just because your returns aren't as high as it would be for betting for the underdog.
Sorry, if you bet on
the Kings.
On the
right?
Kings side.
Yeah.
But actually both sides would be losing in the long run because the implied probability is too high on both sides. I'm not sure if that's what you're saying, but yeah, okay, got it. Awesome. So, hypothetical scenario. Let's say another recreational book. You guys may recognize this book. I don't want to call them recreational. I changed the numbers here so that it worked out. But let's say that another recreational sports book offers us plus 500 on the Raptors. These odds are obviously higher than the plus 407 we were getting from Pinnacle. So, can we all agree that that's a I'm seeing a lot of nods. That's a good play, right? We're going to make money. Awesome. We're going to be rich. That's amazing. Now, how rich are we going to be, right? We kind of want to know because if the odds were plus 2,000, we'd be way richer than if the odds were plus 408, right? And so what is our expected return on this play? And you guys may have learned this concept in stats class before. I'm sure you're going to learn it here. But expected value. So expected value is basically the average amount that we can expect to win or lose if we place a bet over and 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 over. And I keep saying that because it has to happen a lot. Yes?
Sorry, I'm just curious about, I don't know if this is going too much on a tangent, but about how we, I guess, Devigging. Are we just normalizing the bets? Pinnacle bets, or
So-
are you taking like the lay odds? That's probably like the more conservative.
There's a few different formulas. We could chat after because it gets a little in the weeds. There's, as I mentioned, there's a few different methods. So there's one that kind of removes the percentage overround equally from both sides, and then those other methods account more for that long shot bias that I mentioned. And so there's different like mathematical formulas that'll put it in different distribution that will remove it maybe not equally depending how much of a long shot there is. And so yeah, I can actually there's a link in there I can send you if you're curious on how the formulas for each different method work. And so back to the expected value. It's the amount that we can expect to win or lose if we place it over and over and over again. And in mathematical terms, you can see that it's the probability of winning times the amount you would win when you win the bet, and then you have to subtract out the chance of losing times the amount that you lose. So let's say we're betting on the Raptors. We know that there is a 20% chance of the Raptors winning the game. Let's say we're betting $1, just for this example. You would win $5. This is based on the FanDuel line from before, right? So you would win $5, and then we know that you're gonna lose 80% of the time, but you only lose $1, so it's not as bad. When you put that all together, it turns out that on average, we can expect to win 18 cents approximately, if we did this again and again, for every $1 that we bet, which equates to an 18% expected return. Awesome, better than the stock market, amazing, we're gonna be rich, this is great. Put our life savings on it, please don't. Because we have to remember that when we go back to the real game that's happening tonight, 4 to 5 times the Sacramento Kings are winning the game, right? And so it's not like you invest in the stock market, you buy a company and you wait 20 years and it goes up. 80% of the time, let's say you bet $100, that $100 evaporates, it's gone forever. And you have to place a lot of bets in order to even out the sample so that you can actually realize this expected return. So you may be wondering, well, if we're not going to put all of our life savings on it, how much should we be betting on this specific play, right? And there's actually, surprisingly, a very good answer. Oh, okay, yes. Yeah, okay, I basically just mentioned, please don't put all your life savings on it or you'll end up like that guy with the empty bottle, and yeah, it's not good. So what is the right amount to bet on this play? And there is a formula developed by this nice guy named Kelly, and it's a formula for sizing your bets that, it's a word salad here, but it maximizes the expected value of the logarithm of wealth, which is a very fancy way of saying you're maximizing the growth rate of your bankroll. And so the reason for this is that if you bet too little, you're not taking enough advantage of the opportunity. But if you bet too much, you're putting too much risk into when you lose, and then it's harder to recover, or especially if you put way too much, you're going to lose your entire bankroll. And so there's a balance. Basically, it's like this curve, and you're finding the top of the curve, which is the optimal amount to bet to grow your bankroll. And this formula is based on two things. Number one is the odds, and the second thing is the fair value, which again, we're just trusting Pinnacle to give us an accurate fair value. And so we need to be careful about how much we bet, because there is, some variance in this amount, which is why we use what's called fractional Kelly. And to put this in just an example, this is another fancy bot from our Discord server. And you can see that given the odds of 500 and the fair value of 407 that we had earlier, the formula is telling us to bet 3.67% of our bankroll. But a lot of people, might be worried that we don't have such an accurate estimate, the variance is too high, so we can use a fraction of that, which would be this one, which is a quarter, so you're dividing by 4, and you'd bet 0.92% of your bankroll on that play. So, that's all great, wonderful, we have these perfect examples where we know we're going to make 18% on these awesome bets. But back to reality, there are several challenges when you're doing this type of thing. One of them is, it's hard to tell who is sharp in different markets. You guys, you just trust me that Pinnacle is really smart, and although they are very smart, they might not be the best in every market to trust. If there's like a random basketball prop of if this random NBA player is going to get 25 points tonight, I don't know if they're the best. I just know that they're very good for more mainstream markets, especially. It's also hard to find discrepancies where one side is the odds are way too high, because the whole job of the sports books is to make the odds lower than the true odds, right? Or than the true value. Also, odds change very, very fast. Sometimes you'll find an opportunity and be like, this is amazing, this is the biggest nuke bomb I've ever seen in my life. And you go to the website and all of a sudden the odds are cut in half, and now you're back to losing money. And so, this guessing game is part of what makes sports betting so difficult, and why a lot of people shouldn't be doing it, but it also is, part of the fun of learning and the frustration of learning. So there are some ways to tell us, to basically indicate to us which books and who we can trust. And I'm just going to go through specific ones here that I can think of. One would be limits, so how much a sports book lets you bet on the line. Let's say Pinnacle, 15 minutes before an NFL game on Sunday, probably is going to let you put maybe $100,000 on one of their lines, that's a lot of money, right? And let's say BetMGM is only willing to let people put maybe $100,000, whatever. Not as much money, right? So who are you going to trust more in that situation? The guys who are letting you put $100,000 in. Same thing with the VIG. The lower the commission, the more confident that a book is. So if a book is charging a huge spread on the odds between the teams, that means, well, they're less confident in what they're doing. But if a book is charging like 2%, it means they're very, very confident in the odds that they're setting. Another one is movement. So this is a very, very big one. It's called chasing steam. And the goal of using line movement is to catch slower books before they move. So basically what happens when a smart person places a bet on a sports book is the sports book takes that information, and a lot of the time they'll say, oh, okay, maybe we were a little wrong. We're going to move our guess of where the odds are a little bit. And if a few sports books start getting movement, action from smart people, and there's one that is still hanging around at the old odds and they're just sleeping, a lot of the time you can catch the one sleeping before they catch up to the rest of the books. It's also, so books that don't limit winning players is also very helpful for trusting them. So Pinnacle, as I mentioned before, is an example of a book that does not kick out players if they win too much money. And a lot of the recreational books, as BetMGM, there's a lot of other examples, will, if you win too much money, and it's one of the worst parts of sports betting, they will just say, okay, you've won too much money on my book, sorry, get out of here, you're done, and be on your way. Basically, you can put maximum $1 on different bets. Yeah, it's probably the worst part of everything I do. Yeah, go ahead.
I also found this myself when I was hedging against, on two different books against, obviously to protect my losses, as well as guarantee gains. And I think on 5 or 6 of the books which I actually hedged on, they put a limit on $1 for me. Yeah.
So if you're hedging, it actually can be a lot worse than if you're just doing this style where you're willing to take a position with risk. If you're hedging and putting very specific weird amounts, the books are very good at catching on to that, and it's not fun, and it really limits your profitability. So, as I mentioned, books that don't limit winners are more trustworthy, and the last one is consensus. So let's say there's 20 different books that agree on something, and then a recreational book that has its lines way off. Well, we can take the average of the lines of a bunch of books, even if you don't trust one specific one. And chances are that 20 different sports books, all the people, all the smart modelers there, with all the action, probably can get a good estimate versus the one random sports book that's way off, and then you can use that to find an opportunity. So that was a brief intro to the world of positive expected value betting. I hope you found it interesting. I want to say one more time that I really want to, think you need to make sure you're responsible when you're betting and gambling. This is only theoretical and it's not designed to encourage you to gamble. So please be very careful with what you do and do not bet outside of your means. I think that's all.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
Underdogs winning.